Hello everyone, this is Cobalt. In this video, I wanted to discuss the effects of burying and how the basic formula works. The Beefy Smash Dudes covered a video that discusses the best method for mashing in the game to get out of a buried state, and I just wanted to elaborate on that a bit and get a little more in-depth with the actual frame data calculations to determine how it works as a whole within the game. So, the base formula is shown here. It calculates the total number of time in frames that the opponent will remain buried. I know that this may look scary and that math is hard sometimes, but don't worry, we'll get through this together. The number 10 at the end of the formula is a constant, indicating that you'll remain buried for a minimum of 10 frames without mashing. The remaining 4 portions of the equation are based on different variables. The first portion is based on the percent of the person being buried after the damage of the attack has been calculated. So, let's say you're at 50% after you get hit. 0.5 times 50% will add an additional 25 frames of time you will remain buried. So currently we're at a total of 35 frames, or just over half a second of time to be buried. Next comes the variable k. This is a representation of the knockback that the move would apply. The way this is phrased, I think this would be total knockback, including both base knockback and knockback scaling. Data on this is a little difficult to come by at this point. Even knockback calculators don't have it exactly determined yet, but using an example from Villager, which used Smash 4 knockback data, but for the sake of this example it still applies, his down smash would apply roughly 40 units of knockback to Mario when he is at 50%. Again, this isn't exact, but more to show how the formula is calculated. So we have 40 units of knockback multiplied by 1.5 to get 60 additional frames from the knockback of the move, which brings our total to 95 frames of bury time, or just over 1.5 seconds. Variable R is based on the stock count, so if your opponent is a stock ahead of you, it will reduce the amount of time that you're buried. On even stocks, I assume this would be 0, so for the sake of this example, we're going to assume that we're on even stocks, so we're at +0, which will be still at 95 frames of bury time total. The variable U is a modifier based on the underdog boost, and in competitive Smash this is not active, so this would also be 0. So we have a total of 95 frames of bury time after that formula. What we can see here is that as the opponent's percentage goes up, so does their bury time. Additionally, we can see that as both players' percentage goes up, so will the knockback the move would deal, which also will add to the bury time. Based on these two factors primarily, the bury time increases drastically the higher the opponent's percent and the higher your own. Additionally, you have methods of reducing your bury time in the same way you do from a grab. Every time you move the left stick into one of the 4 cardinal directions, up, right, left, or down, will decrease your bury time by 8 frames. This can be done every frame if you're fast enough, and every other input besides taunt decreases your bury time by 14.4 frames, and can only be performed every other frame. If you input one directional input every other frame, which is remarkably fast mashing, in our example you will be locked for approximately 20 frames, which is plenty of time for an effective punish option. Now, this is just one example, and when more information on knockback comes out for other moves, this would give us a better idea of the bury time for things like Inkling's roller. So, where does all this information leave us? Well, it gives us an optimal way to determine how to mash based on the percent that you're buried at, which was covered in great detail by the Beefy Smash Dudes in their video last year. This is a mechanic that has frankly frustrated me over the years playing Smash, and I've never understood entirely how it works or why I had such a difficult time getting out of it. That's what prompted me to make this video. So let's take a look at the move that brought this discussion to the forefront in the beginning of the Smash Ultimate meta, Inkling's Splat Roller. The original knockback data for Inkling's roller made the move bury for an incredibly long time at low percents due to the high base knockback of 60 frames while having 80 for knockback scaling. After large amounts of community frustration with the move at the game's launch, this was changed to 25 units of base knockback and 105 units of knockback scaling. This knockback scaling change means that the higher end percentage you get, the more knockback the move will yield, meaning your bury time will be greater. So as your percent grows higher and higher, the threat of getting hit by this move grows larger and larger. And since the knockback of the moves is multiplied by 1.5, this is likely the biggest factor when it comes to contribution to bury time calculations. A common argument for this that people make is that Inkling's roller is easy to avoid or to predict, and I don't think that this is necessarily true given the waves that Cosmos has made in the competitive Smash scene. I've seen him get plenty of kills off of roller confirms at high percents, so I think that the observable impacts of this move are pretty clear. While you net less at lower percents, landing this move on an opponent at higher percents can virtually guarantee a stock if the opponent isn't proficient at mashing. Next, King K. Rool, Banjo and Kazooie, Donkey Kong, and Rob have slightly different bury equations which are dependent on slightly different things. Banjo and Kazooie, King K. Rool, and Rob, for instance, have bury times that are solely dependent on the opponent's percentage before the hit, and DK's also includes the damage dealt by the move. The unique thing about these formulas is that they have a higher base frames of berry time than the traditional berry formula. It's entirely based off of the percentage of the opponent, and the knockback of the move isn't taken into account at all. So as the opponent's percentage goes up, it isn't impacted by the strength of the move at all, with the exception of DK's headbutt. The berry mechanic has no cap, and it only gets stronger as time goes on. So with characters that have this option available to them, it's especially dangerous to get hit with these at higher percentages if you aren't a top-notch masher. I hope this video has been informative and helped you to better understand a little about how the berry mechanics work and how long you're buried is impacted by the things like percentage and knockback scaling. Please refer to the Beefy Smash Dudes video on burying if you'd like additional information. It'll be linked in the description below. Once again, I'm Cobalt, and thanks for watching.